Happy Tuesday, boys and girls. Today is your big interview day, so hopefully all of you have your family interviews scheduled, or if you've already started, hopefully they're going really well. I thought that it would be great to do some reading about oral histories, and so I found this article that we're going to zoom in on and read all together. Let's check out this article. Before we read the text, let's take a look at this photograph that goes with it. Now, when you look at this photo, what do you notice? What do you think is happening in this picture? What do you suppose those two people are doing? What observations can you make? If you're sitting near someone, turn and share with your neighbor, what is it you're noticing about this photo? If you're sitting by yourself, just think in your head. Well, let's do some reading to check out what is happening in this photo. This article is called Oral Histories by Samantha Gross. Everyone has stories to tell. When we share our stories with others, we give them a peek into how we have become who we are. Coralie Carlson was a journalist. For her job, she researched important things that were happening and wrote about them, so everyone could know about what was going on in the world. One of the reasons she liked her job was that she got to ask people questions and hear them tell their stories. It's an insight into whole other worlds that you never would have known existed before, she said. I find it fascinating. It's not just journalists who ask people questions and listen to their stories. Notice I did make a reading mistake there, but great readers always go back and correct the mistakes that they've made. Anyone can interview another person about his or her experiences. When a person does this and records the answers, it's called collecting an oral history. An oral history can be recorded with an audio recorder, a video camera, or by writing down what a person says. Miss Carlson collected an oral history from her mother-in-law. She learned about the 71-year-old's memories of growing up in Bulgaria during World War II. Without the oral history, those memories could be lost. It's not until you get down to the level of a person's story that you really understand what happened, Miss Carlson said. It brings things to life. One famous oral historian was named Studs Terkel. He interviewed men and women from all walks of life. In one of his books, Working, he interviewed a wide variety of people about their jobs. He spoke to them about what they did for work and how they felt about it. In the book, he wrote down their words exactly as they were said. He interviewed a farmer who spoke about worrying that the weather might hurt his crop. A sanitation worker talked about how exhausted his job made him. A welder spoke about how much he enjoyed working with his hands. Mr. Terkel said he was especially interested in the uncelebrated people who never made the traditional history books when he was interviewed by the Chicago History Museum. Mr. Terkel believed that learning about people's experiences was important. He said it could help us avoid repeating past mistakes. Let's pause here for a moment because that's a very interesting claim that Mr. Terkel is making. It's interesting to consider that learning about people's experiences could help us avoid repeating past mistakes. In your head, think for a moment, in what ways might that be true? How could learning about other people's experiences help us to avoid making the same mistakes? If you're sitting near someone, share your idea with whoever is nearby. If you're by yourself, just keep it in your head. I'll pause and give you some think time. When I think about Mr. Terkel's claim, I feel like it's probably true that learning about other people's experiences could help us avoid making the same mistakes, because if we can learn from our own mistakes, that makes sense that we could also learn from other people's. For example, when I watch my friends do something and it doesn't go super smoothly, I know when it's my turn how to do it a little bit better or a little bit differently so that it can be more successful. I think that's true in a lot of cases. Did anyone else come to that conclusion? Let's keep reading. One organization, StoryCorps, encourages everyone to become an oral historian. StoryCorps operates recording studios where people can bring someone they know or would like to know better and interview that person. StoryCorps sends a copy of each interview to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., where it is archived, which is a fancy way of saying it's saved forever and ever. As of 2013, StoryCorps had collected more than 45,000 interviews. The organization says the interviews help people become more connected and remind them of their shared humanity. Historians of the future will be able to use the archive to understand the experiences of people today. StoryCorps suggests that participants prepare a list of questions to ask during their interviews. For example, a son can ask his mother what has been the happiest moment in her life. He can ask her what person has had the biggest influence on her and how her life has turned out differently from what she expected. Some young people use interviews to learn more about their family history. Oral history can be a great way to learn about family members you never had the chance to meet. So, the main point of this article was to teach you about oral histories. So, in your head, I would like for you to summarize what is an oral history. Think about what you learned regarding this topic and how would you describe what an oral history is? If you're sitting near someone, you might consider sharing your answer out loud. If you're sitting by yourself, just think in your head. Well, an oral history is a story of information that a person shares about his or her experiences, and they share that information by talking or speaking. So today, when you're conducting your interviews, you are collecting an oral history, which is super exciting and so special because remember, this is part of history, so you're recording history. My screen is acting so weird. I think my computer doesn't like me. Using all that we've learned so far about fluency, let's try those strategies while reading this article called Oral Histories by Samantha Gross. Hey, that's our janitor's last name too. Everyone has stories to tell. When we share our stories with others, we give them a peek into how we have become who we are. Coralie Carlson was a journalist. For her job, she researched important things that were happening and wrote about them, so everyone could know about what was going on in the world. One of the reasons she liked her job was that she got to ask people questions and hear them tell their stories. It's an insight into whole other worlds that you would never have known existed before. She said, "I find it fascinating." It's not just journalists who ask people questions and listen to their stories. Anyone can interview another person about his or her experiences. When a person does this and records the answers, it's called collecting an oral history. An oral history can be recorded with an audio recorder, a video camera, or by writing down what a person says. Miss Carlson collected an oral history from her mother-in-law. She learned about the 71-year-old's memories of growing up in Bulgaria during World War II. Without the oral history, those memories could be lost.